Warning! The Dub Talk podcast contains strong language and content that might be unsuitable for younger audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Also, please be aware that there may be spoilers for any and all anime to occur, including but not limited to Hinomaru Sumo. Please take this into consideration if there are any series that you have yet to finish. And finally, please remember that the opinions shared in this video belong only to those of the individual participants and do not reflect those of the Dub Talk podcast as a whole. That having been said, hello, I'm your host, Hardy Kosel, and welcome aboard to the wide world of sumo. We've got a ton of great matches ready for you tonight. So sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's tournament of tumultuous titans, as man versus man break both odds and physical limitations in order to prove once and for all who is the superior opponent in the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, adult and child alike, please join in with me as we dive headfirst into the dub for Hinomaru Sumo. Say it with me, everyone. Spirit! Hello, one and all, and welcome to Dub Talk, the podcast where a bunch of sumo wrestlers in training get together, push each other around, grapple each other, and maybe, if we're not too tired afterwards, maybe talk about the latest and greatest in English anime dubs. I'm your host for this evening, Spaceman Hardy, and tonight, at long last, we are finally here to talk about one of the shows we've been meaning to get around to for some time, Hinomaru Sumo. Originally intended to be a half-season review episode for the fall 2018 season, we have overcome multiple setbacks and delays and are now ready to charge head-on into the ring to take this show to the ground. Joining me tonight are my fellow national treasures, Yokozuna Roots, Roots and Lac, and Club Manager Gigi.
Look, I'm just here for the boys with no pants.
You'll never out-eat my buffet.
Yeah, no, Gigi found out we were talking about a show about muscle-bound shirtless men, and she's basically just had to join us, so.
Look, I'm here to represent all my girls because you know who sports anime is really for.
Right.
Fujoshi.
Well, you know what's funny, Hardy? You and I share a love of manly anime. We've made that very clear.
Oh,
but
yes.
Watching this, I did not realize how much Fist of the North Star vibes I was going to get from this.
Oh, really?
Crap,
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like calling out the name of their attacks and all the freeze frame right before they hit the ground. It's very, very shonen-esque. So, anyways, before you ask, what is Hinomaru Sumo about? First, we need to dive a little bit into the history of sumo itself. While it is a very complicated sport with centuries of dedicated rules, tradition, and regulations, the too long didn't read version is basically this. Sumo is a form of competitive, full-contact wrestling where a rikishi, or wrestler, attempts to force his opponent out of the circular ring, or doyo, or into touching the ground with any body part other than the soles of his feet, usually by throwing, shoving, or pushing him down. Said wrestlers typically wear garments known as mawashi belts, which resemble loincloths made of silk, by which their opponents may attempt to grab them in order to lift them up or slide them around the ring. While we could go on for hours about the various little intricacies of sumo, we do have a lot of characters to cover and not much time to do so, so for now let's learn a little bit about the show we'll be covering tonight. As per ANN's descriptions, a small, new student Ushio Hinomaru appears before the weak little sumo club of Adachi High School. The words big and heavy are rules to the sport, which does not fit this newbie one bit. But Ushio surprises everyone. Ushio and the small sumo club climbs its way to the top with a goal to reach the highest rank, Hinoshita Kaisan. In other words, it's another story about a scrawny underdog with a lot of raw talent fighting his way up the ranks to achieve the goal of best insert sports player here ever.
So basically like every other sports anime except the boys don't wear pants.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
Yes. Lots of pantless boys. It's kind of like Free except more full contact.
Free is not a sports anime. Let's not have this discussion.
And yet Death Parade is, but
it
anyway.
is a sports anime.
All right, so before we waste any more time, let's go directly into our director and writer. Directing this show is a Chris George, and as the ADR writer, we have Clayton Browning. Chris George has directed shows such as Pop Team Epic, Black Clover, and Hyoka. Clayton has written for shows such as Boogie Pop and Others, Concrete Revolution, and SSSS Gridman. So we didn't start off. Let's see. Roots, why don't you go first?
Sure. Chris George and Clayton Browning kind of had a little bit of a challenge on their hands, because sumo wrestling is known in the US, but the intricacies are kind of lost on us. And not to mention the manga is, like, only just recently became available in the US for reference, so not a lot to go off of. One thing I really like about the scripts is they kind of go locker room, but not to the full extent of, like, I don't know what word I would use for it, like, dude bro, I guess? Like, it's very, very heavily jockey, but not, you know, to the extent of it's a bunch of surfers learning how to do sumo wrestling kind of thing. And in terms of the general casting, Funimation really kind of used the extent of their burly male actors for this show, and it's a really nice variety. I like that aspect of it. All of the characters sounded distinct as well, which, considering the fact that a lot of their... Let's be real, this is kind of a GONZO show, so a lot of the character designs kind of blended together. So I'm kind of glad there was a lot of distinction to each character's voice to make them a little easier to pick out among the crowd. So, in general, I really like both of the directions and scripts. And I actually kind of hope that Chris George does more sports anime coming up, because I think he did a really good job with this one.
All right. Lac, why don't you follow up with this?
Yeah, probably gonna parrot a lot of what Root said. It's really hard to be able to figure out, like, the right way to dub a sports anime that's a sport that we're not really particularly, like, knowledgeable of. So when you have to dub this, it does create a challenge, and I think they handled it very well. I'm trying to think of anything that stood out for me. I do appreciate how much passion was in each one of the performances. I think that's something that can be easy to, like, mess up in a dub, especially for a dub like this one. And for every single one of the actors, they really got, like, 120% out of each of them. Like, disregarding the quality of the performances themselves, even without that, like, there still was this passion and this, like, gravitas to, like, how the characters acted when they were in the ring. And I think that's kind of half the battle for this sort of anime. Yeah, and you're juggling so many different characters that kind of, admittedly, kind of get lost into one another. Like, you really have to be able to pick people who are distinctive from one another, and I think they did that fairly well. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. So,
Gigi, what do you have to say?
Well, I kind of have the opposite viewpoints as everybody else, because here's the thing. I know my boys, and I've come to know Funimation's roster of male voice actors very well and pick out their distinct voices. I thought a lot of them sounded the same, which was fine, because I am all, please, alpha male bass voices, come to me. Let's party all together, right? But at the same time, like, when you get to the characters who maybe don't have names, or the ones that have like 4 or 5 lines and then switch to somebody else, no idea who they were. And that could also be a good thing, because I am pretty damn sure that Justin Briner and Cliff Chapin were in here somewhere, and I couldn't pick them out. I think I might have. I think they were in the very last tournament. But, like, the guys that I could easily distinguish, I couldn't pick about. Let's not talk about one of them when we get to it, because I definitely could not pick him out, and I'm kicking myself for it. Right. But this is like the token Ranbu of all alpha male actors, basically. And you can't throw girls in here to try and play off that they're voicing a sumo wrestler. If there were some and I missed them, shit, good on ya, Chris George, because I couldn't find him at all. And I'm specifically looking to pick out anybody who doesn't sound like in the right kind of timber zone. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you get me.
Right.
I thought he did very good at rounding up a very large ensemble cast. I would really like to know how many boys were actually in this, because I tried counting and then I gave up. So I posted it on Twitter and nobody decided to tell me. But here's the thing. I thought the girl performances really stood out. And maybe it's because I don't watch a lot of anime that these two actresses are in. But to me, he picked outstanding female voices to go along with the male ones. As for the writing, I don't think I've ever talked about Clayton Browning, but he translated it so I could understand what sumo was. I didn't really care what sumo was, but by the end I kind of cared, so that was good. And I thought it was real dude bro-y, but I like dude bro-y, so it worked for me. It's very hard to write for a sports anime because a lot of it is done in internal monologue, which maybe would make it a little bit easier for the actors because they could just say whatever they want without having to worry about lip flaps. But I've seen a lot of sports anime, most of it subtitles, so I know it's a rare occasion when one gets a dub, and I'm not going to take it for granted, and it was pretty solid all around.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Gigi, is that sumo is a very, very, very foreign sport over here in the States or anywhere outside Japan. And there's a lot of terminology and a lot of terms that we simply don't understand because we're not familiar with it. There's so many like simple rules and regulations. It's not simply about two men pushing each other out of a ring. There's like all these different rules and regulations of how you can grab the belt, where you can grab them on the arms, how you can flip them and throw them. It's a laundry list of tiny rules and regulations. And to have to translate all of that for an American audience who is unfamiliar with the sport is a huge undertaking. And I do think that the writers did an extremely good job. As far as the whole dude bro thing, I think it fits here because as traditional and as even as old as sumo is, it's still very much a locker room kind of sport, like football or wrestling. And so it fits in here better than in a place like Free, where it was just very jarring. And as far as the ensemble concerned, there were a few casting choices I might have changed around, mainly when we get to our main cast. But even so, I think even if I wouldn't have cast that particular actor, I still think all the actors did a very good job. Yeah, I don't think there was what I would call a bad performance out of the entire group. And considering that this is pretty much almost Funimation's entire male roster, yeah, that's no undertaking. So I think that Chris and Clayton did a really good job with directing and writing. All right, now to move on to our first group of characters. There are a lot of characters in this show, and we are not going to cover nearly all of them. So we're just mainly going to cover our main cast and crew and a few other relatively important characters. So the first group is going to be 4 of the National Treasures. Now, what the National Treasures are, they are sumo wrestlers in training who have won a particular match that has earned them a nickname. And they are sort of held in higher regards than the other members. And so for our first member, we have Sosuke Kuze. He is from Aiga University High School. His National Treasure name is Kusanagi no Tsurugi. His father is the former Yokozuna, and he serves as Ushio's sort of main rival. Next up, we have Mizuki Sada. He's from Ishigami High School. His National Treasure name is Mikazuki Munechika. He is a bit of aloof yet relaxed, which helps him dodge attacks, and he fights mainly using arm holds. We have Norihiro Norihiro Sanoyama. He is actually a professional sumo wrestler in the Shikabayami stable. He's a 9th-rate Sekitori. He's very mellow, yet very imposing, and he's known for flexible limbs and one-punch takedowns. And we have Tanoji Shido, who's from Totori Hakuro High School. His national treasure name is Dojigiri Yasusuna. He is currently the strongest and youngest Yokozuna in history, and his sister Saki is the manager of their sumo club. Now, playing Sosuke Kuze is Ian Sinclair, who you've heard in shows such as Golden Kamui, Legends of the Galactic Heroes Dinoya Tessa, and Space Dandy. Playing Mizuki Sada, we have Alejandro Saab, who you've heard in Nanbaka, Akiba's Trip, and Hitori Jime My Hero. Norihiro Sainoyama, is played by Mr. J. Michael Tatum, who you've no doubt heard in Steins Gate, Black Butler, and Oron High School Host Club. And finally, Tanoji Shido is played by Damon Mills, who is also in Nanbaka, Hitori Jime My Hero, and is the backup voice of Chris Ayers for Dragon Ball Super. So, what did we think of these performances, starting with Roots?
Alright, so I'm gonna kind of take this in a different order than it was presented. I'm gonna start off with Mizuki Sada, played by Alejandro Saab. I was really impressed by this one, not gonna lie. He doesn't... for the 4 national treasures that we're covering today, his role in the show is probably the smallest, but I really like that he sort of infused the character with a bit of a kind of a playful boredom, if that makes any sense. Like, he's bored with just about every sumo wrestler he's fought until he ends up finally going up against Ushio in the climax of the first core. And one thing I really like about his character is, like, toward the end of the show, he ends up mentoring the sumo club to take down another rival, and he actually shows a newfound maturity, and I really like the scenes he was in, particularly in the second half of the show. And in the matches he's put in, he finally starts showing this intensity toward the end, and it was just really nice and intimidating, and I got goosebumps listening to it. In terms of, like, the next ranked, I would probably put that Norihiro Sainoyama, aka J. Michael Tatum. Not a lot to his character, because in the big national tournament in the second core, he really doesn't end up going very far, because his team is actually eliminated kind of early, if I recall correctly. I like that Tatum played him pretty stoically, pretty duty-driven, devoted to his team. Like, there's really not much more to his character from that, other than, like, scenes of him training in the stable in the second core of the show when Ushio is really getting serious with his training. But I like the serious Tatum voice, and it feels like we don't really hear that quite as often as we used to. So it was really refreshing to hear it again. Tanoji Shido, Damon Mills. I actually didn't hear Damon Mills in the character until toward the end of the show. Like, that is... I know Damon Mills has very scary range, but that was really something. That was like Yuri on Ice surprising. But I thought he did a really good job with the sort of scary bestial intensity of the character. And, like, the final fight with Ushio was just, oh, yeah. Oh no, not the final fight. Like, I should probably clarify. It's the individual tournament. I'm sorry. The finals of the individual tournament between Ushio and Damon. And, you know, Ian Sinclair is Ian Sinclair. I really can't think of a bad performance he's put out. At least in recent years. he's very consistent in his role. He's sort of this strong, silent type, and it's really good. And like toward the end of the show, his like with Damon Mills, his bestial potential is awakened, and like it feels like there's a roar to his voice. I really liked all four. Really good job, guys. Solid thumbs up.
Okay, Lac, you go next.
Well, looking at Sosuke Kuze, I don't know if maybe I just haven't been paying attention enough, but like I haven't heard Ian Sinclair play a stoic character for a very long time. So most of my experiences with Ian Sinclair recently have been either him playing characters like Whis, or in like in like Legend of Galactic Heroes, where he's playing a very normal guy. So like it's interesting to hear him play such a stoic character, and I think he plays it very well. But like even though it was pretty obvious that it was him, like you sort of like listen to it, and it just it does create this interesting dissonance. You have to I'm trying to think of really how I want to put this. If considering he was kind of the final boss of the whole series, like it was interesting how kind of the lead up to that, he was pretty much stoic the whole way through, and then you've got finally the intensity, and you learn that kind of his stoicism is part of his arc, in the fact that he's almost kind of apathetic to Sumo for most of the show, and versus Ushio, who's very passionate about Sumo, which is pretty interesting. For Mizuki Seda, it's Kagi being Kagi, basically. You can't complain. He gets cast in the roles he's good for. So it's incredibly obvious that it's him, but he still did a great job. Norihiro. Norihiro was just kind of there.
Right.
Norihiro didn't do much, so he didn't stand out for me necessarily. I mean, when I heard him, I was like, oh, Tatum's playing him. Cool. But at the same time, yeah, it was a Tatum performance. It's always going to be a B- at worst. So
can't say I've ever heard that description. A B- at worst. Yeah.
But and for Tenoji, like, if you can't identify an actor, that probably means it's Damon Mills.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was great, and like Damon is always great at like playing completely different characters than he did last time, and Tenoji was no exception. Like, you've got this really fiery, like kind of an asshole character, and Damon did a great job. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, Gigi.
It's all gonna go downhill from here, guys.
Here we go.
Just warning you, it's all gonna go downhill from here. Let's
Just
start.
remember, the first 3 yellow marked rows are the splash zone.
God damn it!
If you don't
Why
need to
every
get wet,
time?
stay out of the splash zone.
I'm going home.
Me too.
Let's talk about Ian Sinclair, my favorite subject. Yes, please. So okay. At first I was like, ooh, it's Ian Sinclair being like very, very stoic, which I enjoy because, like you guys have said, he doesn't play stoic very often, so you kind of have to hunt those down. But after the whole series went by and we finally get to him fighting Ushio and he busts out that snake thing, holy crap. I was like getting goosebumps. I was like, yes, there's where he is. There was such a nice change in the character and in his voice between that stoic part and that menacing part. There was one point where he fell out of character and it was like true Ian Sinclair. And I was like, all right, I don't care. It's Ian Sinclair. You can friggin' turn water into wine. I don't really care at this point. Just do you. You do you. But he was not my best boy. You're all shocked now.
Mm-hmm.
Alejandro Saab, my hot damn cinnamon roll. I almost didn't recognize him here because I really wasn't paying attention. Like this whole part with him in it, I think I maybe skipped. This was the episode that I skipped. And then I got like his fight and I was like, oh yeah, there he is. So that's cool. I could tell he was having fun with this because this is not like the characters that he's normally typecast as. So he's mostly like, he plays a lot of like cuter, like younger boys. So this he was like big and burly and he was like kind of like very handsome. So I was like, yeah, my cinnamon roll. He's still a cinnamon roll, but he's like a hot, tough cinnamon roll instead of a hot damn cinnamon roll. So we'll take it. J. Michael Tatum was basically a sort of British sumo wrestler. Sounded very regal. It was, like you guys said, Tatum being Tatum. But my best boy out of this whole anime was freaking Tennoji, who I did not recognize as Damon Mills until the end when, he like, I don't know if it was out of character for a second, but it sounded more like Damon Mills, like when he was standing in the hallway after he had lost and like button in like on the sidelines. And I was like, oh, okay, there he is.
Yeah,
but like throughout,
that was
yeah, you know what
I
I'm talking
realized it was
about.
him.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I was like, oh, there's Damon.
Like in all honesty, for like most of the show, I assumed he was the guy with the big poofy hair that was covering his eyes, because it sounded a little more like him.
Oh. Like, I can never place the Damon characters, but now I associate him most with, like, the asshole because I watched Hitoriji My Hero, like, about 1,300 times. So, that he was playing the asshole here was great because you all know I love assholes. And his asshole in Hitoriji My Hero was such a dick that I hated him. But Tennoji was a good asshole. Plus, he had baller eyeliner. So yes, I liked him best when he was serious. Like, that was when I liked Tennoji the best. And I was like, Tennoji, you are my best boy. God damn. I can't believe it's Damon Mills.
And like,
so these were...
And like when he broke down at the end of the fight when he lost.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good.
I know. He's such a wizard. He's so talented. Like, good job, honey. Like, he is, So, though, like, 2 out of all of my best boys were in that section. So, like I said,
Yeah.
all goes downhill from here.
Gigi, you mentioned him wearing eyeliner, and now I can't help but mention Tennoji, help but see Tennoji coming out of a Hot Topic.
Oh my God, please, somebody fan art that. Make it happen with a hoodie.
The
with
emo
cat
sumo.
Ears. Yes! Do it.
Oh God, the end of episode thing with his eyebrows. That was the best.
Oh my God. I love Tennoji so much.
Yeah.
Where he's just like,
anyway.
Oh. Wait, you guys thought I didn't have eyebrows? And he closes his eyes and they're just these thin lines. I love that. It was good. Sorry, Hardy, go ahead.
He has to draw them on with a pencil. I think these are all solid performances around. Standouts for me would be Damon's Tennoji because I figured out who it was about halfway through. Because I've heard Damon some of his deeper voices before at other shows, and so it took me a while to figure it out, but I did. And yeah, it's just if you can't recognize the character's voice, it's probably Damon Mills. Just good mantra to play off of. But he was fun. He was big and scary and intimidating. Another standout for me was Alejandro Saab as Mizuki Sada because, like you said, he really doesn't get cast in these types of roles very often. Usually he's very hyperactive and spastic and gets put into these shows where he has to act goofy and silly. And Mizuki is not like that. He's very chill in general. And so it was a nice, refreshing take to hear Alejandro play someone who's just chillax for a moment. So that was really good. For Norihiro, it's Tatum being Tatum. It's just He's this big, imposing guy, sort of almost a teacher almost. And like you said, even the worst Tatum is still very, very nice to listen to. And with Ian Sinclair, I have heard him in quite a few stoic roles. And I think at his best, the moments where Kuze sort of lets himself go, he lets his true passion and anger out in the middle of a match. That's when you can just hear a sort of visceral monster behind it. I think someone mentioned that you could hear like the snake come out of his voice. So yeah, it was very enjoyable. So, and I get to make a joke that GJ likes Ian Sinclair's snake. So,
what was the name of Whitesnake's third album?
Sixth album. Slide it in.
Thanks. You can take your ponchos off now. We're done, fam.
All right, so moving on to our next set of characters, we have two of the old-timers. These are a couple of old retired sumo teachers who, a couple of yokozunas, or one yokozuna actually. One's retired completely, the other is the founder of the Shikabayami stable. We have Shunkai, aka Tokyo Ogawa. He's from the Nagato stable. He's a former yokozuna and retired sumo wrestler. Still pretty tall despite being over 70, and he loves to get drunk, play golf, and flirt with girls. And we also have Akio Shikabayami. He is the founder of his own stable. He's a former sekiwake known for his yokozuna style, similar to Hinomaru, and he's also a former student of Shunkai. So, playing Shunkai, we have Mark Stoddard, who you've heard in such shows as Basilisk, Witchblade, and Case Closed. Yeah, I'm going real retro there. And playing Akio Shikabayama is Jeremy Inman, known for Dragon Ball Z, Dagashi Kashi, and Yuri on Ice. So, what did we think of these two old-timers? Roots, start us off.
Yeah, now we're with the old dogs. This is my jam. Yeah, so let's start with Shunkai, played by Mark Stoddard. Like, I really like Mark Stoddard's voice. Gonna be honest here. I really like this sort of... This character has a lot of nuance to him that's kind of surprising when you first encounter him. He at first acts like this really eccentric, almost Yoda-like teacher where he's trying to basically instill instruction into Ushio using very unconventional means. Basically,
Roots, is it okay if I jump in?
Oh, sure.
Because you saying that, I got serious Gran Torino vibes off of him.
Ooh.
You saying he's like a Yoda type?
Yeah.
I got, especially considering the whole food allegory thing that he was doing with Ushio.
Yeah.
Like it immediately made me think of Gran Torino.
Like for reference, every day of his training, he gives Ushio a 100 yen coin and basically tells him to come back with a very impossible to make with 100 yen dish and make it in a half an hour. Or come back with it in a half an hour. And the whole training was basically to find a way around this restriction, which he does by ordering takeout with the 100 yen coin, taking it to a payphone eventually, which like I really like the sort of, yeah, this guy gets it kind of vibe that that Shunkai gives off after that. And then he's just basically, from that point on, becomes just, I don't want to say the generic mentor, because, like, a generally good dude who's just giving Ushio all of this knowledge, and, like, I really like Mark Stoddard here. And Jeremy Inman as Akio, like, he gives the character a bit of a odd shadiness that yeah, you know what? I'd use the word shadiness. Like, it's not necessarily, like, he's doing bad things, but just this, like, underworldy feeling to him. Like, I really like that he basically puts a lot of faith in Ushio and the Sumo Club, basically to just bring a bunch of famous old people he knows together to teach these guys some stuff. It's great. They're both really great mentor figures, and I think both actors did a really great job with them.
Now, I'm gonna go with Akio first because I don't have as much to say. I think Jeremy Inman did a great job. Akio is a fun character. You know, he's not the typical kind of adult character we get in shonen. So it was fun to have him. Like he's kind of, you know, he's kind of like a wheeler and dealer, but he's not like a pervert or anything like that. You know, so more the pervert mentor we got from Ogawa, but very briefly. It wasn't nearly like Roshi levels or anything like that. Of course, I may be mixing him up a little bit with the character that Mike McFarlane played. Yeah, Akio was fun. He was a good character, and Jeremy Inman did a great job. Something to talk about, something to notice of Ogawa is when you have a character like that, you have to have somebody who breeds confidence. Someone who always comes across like they know exactly what they're doing, and Stoddard really brought that. Like Stoddard really has one of those impressionable voices that really makes you feel like he has the confidence and the know-how to do what he has to do. I really just enjoyed how kind of intimidating he was, but at the same time how knowledgeable he felt. With Akio as a mentor character, he wasn't so much the knowledgeable one so much as he was the guiding one, and Ogawa was more the knowledgeable one. And you know, we don't usually hear Stoddard have such a impactful role. A lot of the times he does not typically play super important characters. He has, but not very often, especially considering the fact that anime doesn't typically have older men as their lead characters. So that's kind of part of the issue. But he really made an impact. I would say he's probably one of the most impactful performances in the show for me. Do I think he was the best performance? Probably not. But I think he did a great job. I think they both did a great job. So
10 out of 10. Old dudes strike again. Really, I don't have a lot to say about them. They were good in what they did. I seriously, when it comes to the older characters and the actors that I don't know very well, they did a good job. I don't really have anything else to say other than that.
Well, okay, then to be then. Yeah, I really agree with a lot of what you guys have said about Mark Stoddard as Shunkai. He is Mark Stoddard always gives off this sort of ex-military sort of voice to me. And it doesn't always work with every character he plays, but when it comes to the old mentor, it really strikes a chord. This is a type of character that he has done several times, and he's very, very good at it, and this time is no exception. My favorite parts, though, is when Shunkai gets to act a little bit goofy, sort of when he gives Ushio the runaround with his training. You can sort of hear the playfulness in his voice come out a little bit more, which is always enjoyable. As far as Jeremy Inman as Akio goes, he's just a lot of fun. Just very, very goofy, and the best parts is when he actually just jumps into the ring himself just to wrestle with his students. Yeah, it's adds a bit of levity to his character, and I think Inman brings that out really well. So that's what I have to say. Let's move on to our next couple of characters. It's time. We've talked about a lot of the boys so far. It's time to get to the girls, and these are our team managers for Adachi High School. First off, we have Reina Gojo, She is the student council president and the former Miss Daichi High beauty queen. She's Adachi High Sumo Club's vice president. She's kind of got a little bit of obsessive over her brother, and she starts out hating sumo but gradually grows to enjoy it. And also we have Chizuko Hori. She's the co-manager alongside Reina. She's highly interested in sumo, almost to being obsessive, and her main arc involves being rescued by Ushio at the start of the series, only for him to be mistaken as a pervert because he wore his Mawashi belt on the train.
And my god, did I just read a spoiler, but okay.
Yeah. Alright. So, playing Reina Gojo, we have Jade Saxton, who you've heard in shows such as Fairy Tail, My Roommate is a Cat, and Michiko and Hachin. And playing Chizuko Hori, we have Felicia Angel, who you've heard in The Devil is a Part-Timer, Senran Kagura, and Classroom of the Elite. Roots, what do you have to say about these two?
Yeah, I honestly really like the fact that Jade Saxton kind of gave the character a kind of tsundere personality. Not necessarily, I mean, in a way, sort of directed at Ushio, but more broadly toward the sport of sumo itself, which I thought was really hilarious. Just, it's
not
really
like I want a sumo, Baka.
It was really funny to me to see, like, a character tsundere for a concept. Like, it was great. She also gets a lot of really great emotional moments, particularly during the tournaments. So, there probably wasn't a moment where she was speaking that I didn't just either have a small smile on my face or kind of chuckle a little bit. So, and Felicia Angel as Chizuko, I really liked her character arc in particular, where she kind of gains an interest in sumo because a sumo wrestler protected her from a pervert on a train. Like, everything she learned about sumo, she learned about after that fact. That was really great. And one thing I really appreciate about the show is it didn't really try to do a shipping war between the two of them and Ushio. The both of them stood out as their own distinct characters that weren't necessarily pining for the main character, but just wanted to see the sumo club grow for their own reasons. And that's really something I can appreciate. Both Jade and Felicia did really great jobs with the characters. Solid thumbs up.
Lac.
Well, I absolutely loved Reina, and I loved Jade Saxton's performance as Reina. I thought it was fantastic. I think it actually had quite a bit of nuance to it. Like, there were some moments, like, when she catches herself being too passionate, she kind of just, like, tosses it away, and I thought Jade sold that extremely well. Felicia, from what I've seen, usually tends to play very strong, like, confident characters, so, not that, Chizuko was, like, submissive or anything like that, but she was more quiet, and it was interesting to see Felicia play a character like that, and I think she did a great job, too. I mean, obviously, we saw more of Reina than we did Chizuko, and I think Jade kind of did a great job of starting off as a really bratty, unlikable girl at the beginning, and slowly, like, you know, letting the character grow and be almost, you know, being very lovable by the end of the show, because you see her genuine, like, love for her brother, and, you know, that his passion and his, you know, his guilt, you know, kind of bleeds onto her, and she starts to understand why he feels like he needs to do this. Now, here's what I say. Are we okay with the little spoilers for stuff that didn't happen in the show but happens in the manga?
There's a spoiler warning at the beginning of the episode.
Okay. Well, it's funny that Roots mentions a love triangle, because apparently later on, Ushio and Reina end up together.
Oh.
Yo! Good for her.
So that was really interesting to me. But to sum up my thoughts, they were both great. We just got to see more of Reina and Jade. She did a really good job. I would say she's probably my second favorite performance of the dub. So.
Oh wow. All right, Gigi.
I really love these girls, both of them. It's hard to be the only females in a cast full of testosterone. So I got to give them both props for really good performances because they made them both stand out to me and they weren't annoying. Personally, I loved Reina's brother complex. Like, I thought that was great.
Well, the good thing is it never came off as creepy.
No, it never did.
Yeah, so that helped the story a lot, is that it never felt like they were going for like an Oni-chan kind of thing. You know, so...
Yeah, they were playing it for laughs, but not to the level of being skeezy.
Yeah, I thought it was really well played, and I liked that, like, with what Roots was saying, they both did, like, definitely show interest towards Ushio, but the writing made it, like, not really focus on that, which was good because the focus of the anime shouldn't have been on them chasing boys. It should have been on the sport. So they did it. But I really thought that these girls both did a great job. Like, seriously, they held their own, and that's hard to do. So get it, girls.
All right. As far as Felicia Angel goes, we don't really see that much of Chizuko until later on in the show. And when she does, you can sort of watch her sort of climb out of her shell because she is very shy and very quiet. And then as she grows more and more interested in sumo, you get to see her sort of develop in front of us. And she's actually, well, both of the girls sort of develop an interest in the sport over the course of the series. She's the one who gets more into the technical aspects of it. She goes and learns all the rules and figures out, all right, this is what they need to be focusing on in their training. This is what they need to do. And it's really fun to hear Felicia's performance go from this really quiet bookworm to this sort of semi-excitable, sumo addict, if that's the word. So, but let me put it to you. Let me say this. I did not recognize Jade Saxon as Reina at first. I really didn't, because, and that's saying something for me, because I can almost always pick her out. This time I had a hard time. I had to really, really listen in order to recognize her. And that's just how much of an individual she plays Reina as. And there's only one other performance I can say that applies to Jade, and that's Carla. Because no other character sounds like Carla that she has ever played. And in turn, no other character sounds like Reina that Jade has ever played. And that's really saying something. So, yeah, both of these girls did a really good job. And, yeah, they were really fun to listen to. All right, we've talked enough about the outside characters of the club. Let's get into the actual members of the Adachi High School Club. First up, we have the coach, who is Kiritito Tsuji. He is trained in the same dojo as Ushio in elementary school. He has the best technical skills in the entire team. Arguably, he's the best wrestler in the team. He acts as a substitute wrestler, but can only fight for 20 seconds at a time due to his extreme asthma. And next up, we have sort of the underdog, smallest member of the team, Kei Mitsuhashi. He is the weakest of the group. He joined the club in order to become strong. Because he doesn't have any sort of physical strengths, he relies on feints, variations, and using his opponent's strengths against them. And at the same time, he never wins a goddamn fight.
He really does not.
He does not. Not a single one. Even the one he was supposed to win got called out on a technicality, and he still lost.
Yeah.
So, playing Kirihito Tsuji, we have Adam Gibbs, who you have heard in shows such as Parasite, Suritama, and Tokyo Ghoul Re. Playing Kei Mitsuhashi, we have Stephen Fu, who you've heard in SSSS Gridman, Sugumomo, and Golden Kamui. So, who do we think of these two performances? Roots.
Yeah, I'll start with Kirihito Tsuji and Adam Gibbs. I really like that he gave the character like a very slow, cold, and calculating persona. I really like towards the end of the show where he actually commits to being a backup fighter for their roster when he actually, takes everything off, puts on the belt, and just turns on beast mode and just gets stuff done. Like, that was a really great adrenaline pumping fight, especially since he had to do it over because of a technicality. Like, that was really, really great. And, the whole kind of snarling bestial kind of thing that a lot of the wrestlers kind of have to add to the character as they're fighting. Like, I really liked hearing that out of Adam Gibbs, because I am not used to hearing that from him, even from something like Parasite, which is about the closest thing I would assume that, he's basically done as like a fighter type character. So that was really great on him. And like Stephen Fu, the poor kid is like always just on the bench. But I like the sort of plucky fighter spirit he gives to Decay. Every time the poor kid should just walk away, he doesn't, because the sumo club needs him, and he just loses fight after fight, but he just keeps growing in determination, and you just want to root for him. And the one fight where he technically wins, like, I was up on the edge of my seat toward the end when he actually managed to flip the guy. Just both of them were just so good, and I'm kind of bummed that we're probably not going to get any more of this show, because I want to see more interactions with them. So
I want to see him win a fight.
Yeah.
Right? If that kid doesn't win a fight, I'm gonna riot.
Just give him something. Like,
he can't be Glass Joe Sumo forever.
Yeah. I just want at the end of the manga, it just turns out he ends up becoming a Yokozuna, and he's still just a scrawny kid. just do it, Shonen Jump. Just make the kid a damn hero. But in terms of the performances, solid thumbs up all around.
Kirihito, I think, was honestly one of the most interesting characters in the show, and the fact that, in spite of Kei being the smallest and weakest, Kei actually has, like, more stamina than Kirihito, I mean. And I don't know, Adam Gibbs really gave a strong performance for Kirihito. I guess I just like how both calculating and conniving Kirihito could be, and I think Adam sold that very well. For Kei, yeah, Stephen Fu really played it really well in the way that Kei is not intimidating at all, and that's how he should be played. Like when you're surrounded by every other member of the team, like even the team managers are more intimidating than Kei, and they're not even like sumo wrestlers. And that's what's really great. And watching the character grow and become stronger, literally like grow and become stronger. They even use the term gains, which I thought was funny. Watching the character grow, and in spite of the fact that he's a lot stronger and more capable now, like, he's still got this, like, youthfulness to him that's really nice, and it gives the character a lot of personality. And, to skip ahead a little bit, I think that's the best thing about the main team, is that they all have distinct personalities. Like, every one of them feels like different from the other one, and I think that's what made them all stand out. And I think that's why Kirihito and Kei stand out really well, too. And I think the performances complement that. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay. Gigi.
So I've had to talk about Adam Gibbs a lot. A lot. And I just got off talking about him as Ryoma in Love Stage, which is a completely different character than Kirihito. Now, I loved him in Love Stage. I've had other performances that Adam Gibbs has done where I just was not behind it. Like, I did not like him in Diabolic Lovers. More Blood. I know everyone is shocked. No, you're not, because you know me. And I did not really care for him in Parasite. But this is like up with Ryoma, top tier Adam Gibbs. Kirihito was my best boy until Denoji came in. So I was like, yes. It was so good to hear him play a different type of character, because he's always like the main guy, and he's always either like super vanilla or like really off in some way. And here he was just like kind of off, and it made him really good. But my favorite part of Kirihito was when he was doing the fighting, and I was like, oh my god, finally, like, please, Adam Gibbs, can you sound like this in every anime ever you voice in for the rest of your life, please? I loved it a lot. As for Stephen Fu as Kei, I felt more emotion from his performance than from anyone else's, and I felt more emotion for this damn character than any other character. I was like, can this little cinnamon roll please win something? Anything? Just let him win. Jesus Christ. And why they put him up against the biggest dude? Like, do they not get headshots beforehand? Like, can you not see, hey, this is the biggest dude, let's put the tiniest dude against him and see what happens? Dumb. But yeah. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot of emotion from his performance, and you kind of have to, because otherwise when you're playing the small kid, you can fall into a stereotype really easily. But that wasn't the case here, so I was really pleased with it.
Yeah, as far as my thoughts go, I think both of them did a really good job in their respective performances. One thing I do appreciate is when Adam Gibbs has to actually step up to the plate and wrestle despite his condition. You can really tell that he loves the sport more than anyone else, but he simply can't do it. And you can tell not only the tiredness in his voice after he fights, but sort of this it's like a disappointment. Like, I would give so much more if only I could. And I think Adam really brings that out well. As far as Stephen Fu, I know Kei is just the scrawniest little thing, but he puts his heart into it, and even though he loses, you can tell that he still has this never give up attitude. And I think partly he's even more so than Ushio, he might be the heart of the entire team. I mean, there's a few characters you could argue would be the heart of the team, in fact, but he's the one who everyone looks up to as far as encouragement, and he's the little brother of the group. And yeah, I think Stephen Fu plays it really well. All right, now moving on from our weakest fighter to two of our strongest fighters, we have Chirihiro Kunisaki. He is a former national wrestling champion. He's an aspiring mixed martial artist who joins the team after losing to Ushio. He relies on a lot of natural talent, and he's capable of learning his opponent's moves. He fights mainly using throwing attack like the German suplex. And we also have Yuma Gojo. He is Reina's older brother. He's a former karate champion who turned to a delinquent. He bullied Ozaki until he was beaten by Ushio, as now he's learning the error of his ways. And he fights mainly using hand strikes and slaps instead of throws. Excuse me. So playing Chihiro Kunisaki, we have Marcus Stimmick, who you've heard in shows such as Assassination Classroom, Ping Pong, and Token Ranbu Hinomaru. And playing Yuma Gojo is Brandon Potter, who you've heard in shows such as Gangsta, Black Cat, and Ace Attorney Season 2. So, Roots, what do we think?
All right. So, I'm like just really glad Marcus Stimmick is a major character in the show. Like, he just has this very fun voice to him that just adds a bunch of pep and energy to the characters he plays. And Chihiro is no different. And like I really like, I'm pretty sure it was like the last fight he has of the show where he's up against who it turns out to be his older brother, who I should mention is played by Brian Massey, which is one of those combinations that like Marcus Stimmick and Brian Massey as brothers. It's just a great combination that you just didn't think of until now. But I like that he's just a fighter trying to use sumo to expand his repertoire, and then it turns out he really likes sumo. So his character arc is very simple, but again, I just really appreciate the pep and energy that Marcus Stimmick gives to him. And I also really like Brandon Potter as like the delinquent, just because he does have a very tough guy aura to his voice. And I actually have to say that Yuma's story arc in the show is probably my favorite, because he's basically the bully in the start of the show. He loses to Ushio, which causes him to decide to become a sumo wrestler, and he mixes karate into what he does. And just toward the end of the first court, he has to go back to his dojo and beg for forgiveness so that he can be further trained in karate to help with his training in sumo. And that's just, like, I think that was one of the most emotional scenes of the show. And I really think Brandon Potter kind of, nailed it. So, like, overall, these two characters, they are probably my favorites of the Sumo Club, and I really like the actors I got for them and the performances we got. Thumbs up.
All right, Lac.
All right. I want to make it clear, I like Marcus Stimmick, and I don't really have a problem with him playing Chihiro. I just think his voice was a little too old. I think his performance was fine. I get that these are big, muscular dudes, and they have to have big, booming voices, but there were times when he sounded like a 40-year-old man trying to sound like a teenager. And it could get a little distracting, is all.
I mean, to be fair, like, just about everybody in this show is, like, first, second year of high school.
Yeah.
And they basically look like 30-year-old men.
Yeah.
Sort of a JoJo situation.
Exactly. But, besides that, Yuma Gojo, Brandon Potter's performance as him was fantastic. I just like Gojo as a character. I think he has a great arc. I think he is a fantastic way to handle like the redeemed bully character. Rarely do we get this much focus on a character like that too. I would say Hiei is probably the next best example I could think of. And even then, well, maybe Kuwabara would be more accurate. But yeah, no, I mean, they both did a great job. In spite of the fact that I think that Marcus Stimmick's voice was a little, like oddly placed for the character, he brought so much energy to Chihiro that I'm not holding that really against him. I just think it was a strange choice. When I first heard his voice in the dub, I was kind of like, all right, this is a little weird. But by the end of the dub, it didn't really bother me anymore. I would just say that if I really had a major complaint, I just think his voice was a little strange for the character, but that's about it. Besides that, I think they both gave really good performances, especially Brandon Potter as Yoma. Yeah, so.
Gigi.
See, I really liked Chihiro, and I didn't like Yuma all that much. This is a personal preference, though. This has nothing to do with their acting or performances. Just, yeah, I did kind of feel that both of them were too old sounding, but I really didn't care because this show is all about alpha male bass voices. Please give them all to me. So that being said, I really liked Marcus as Chihiro a lot. I thought he was funny, and like Marcus is usually pretty funny when he does a character, but I thought like this character was like especially funny. And he was super alpha, which is like just what I needed. I was like, yes, please. Yuma, on the other hand, I could not get into Yuma until the second half of the series when he became soft Yuma. So like once Brandon Potter got more depth to his performance because the character got more depth, I think he did a much better job like emoting through him, because I remember watching the first few episodes and I was just like, I am not feeling this at all. But as the series went on and as Yuma got more depth, his performance was a little less jarring to me. I don't know what it is. There's like something in his voice that makes me like get like that little tick, you know? But that's nothing against him and it's nothing against his performance. That's just me personally, something that isn't my cup of tea. But they both did the very best they could and they were very alpha and it made me super happy.
I can kind of sort of agree with you on a few points there, Gigi, because I have a confession to make. While I like both of these actors and both of these performances, they're not my first choice for who would play these characters. When I was originally watching the show and subbed, I kind of had... I forget who I predicted for them, but... they certainly were not Marcus Dimmick and Brandon Potter. I think I may have had one of them as Ian Sinclair at some point.
Yes, Ian Sinclair would have been a great Chihiro.
That's who I had him as, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
I would almost think Patrick Seitz might be good, too. I know he doesn't really do Texas stuff anymore.
Yeah. No, Patrick would be a good Yuma, in my opinion. But regardless of my personal feelings about the casting, yeah, I have to agree. Marcus has a lot of energy. He's very fun. He's very funny to listen to. And I think he plays, even though it's not my first choice for the voice of the character, I think he plays Chihiro really well. He gets his spirit down. Brandon is a bit more controversial for me as far as Yuma goes. I like the performance and I like this actor. It didn't feel at first like it matched with the face. Like something was off about it, like Gigi says. It wasn't until like later on in like the second half of the show that he really sort of fused better with Yuma's character. And but yeah, as the show went on, it did get better to me to where it wasn't so out of place for me. So while I like both of these actors and both of these performances, they aren't my first choice for who I would choose to play. But then again, I'm not the casting director, so. But you know who is a director of some sort is our team captain. Hey,
can I just interject
moving
for
on
1
to
second?
Yeah,
Because the conversation we had earlier just reminded me of something absolutely hilarious from the show. Like, I think it was when Ian's character was recalling his childhood, and he's just like, yeah, when I was in elementary school, and they're all just like still looking like 30-year-old men.
That is pretty funny.
Like, I laughed so hard at that because it gave me like Cromartie High School vibes. It was beautiful.
It's like that one character from Baki the Grappler who's 15 years old yet looks like this 8-foot-tall giant mountain man.
Oh God, Baki the Grappler.
Moving on to our team captain, we have Shinya Ozaki. He is the club leader and former sole member of Adachi High School Sumo Club. He is just as obsessed, if not more, with sumo as Ushio is. He possesses great mental fortitude and engages in many intense sparring matches with Ushio. He's also pretty much the biggest, sweetest cinnamon roll to ever exist. Fight me. So, playing Shinya Ozaki is Tyson Reinhardt, who we've heard in shows such as Steins Gate, All Out, and Tsukigakure. So, Roots, what is your opinion of our captain?
Yeah, I really like the performance. I love that Tyson gave him such a sense of enthusiasm. But one thing I really appreciate that probably wouldn't... I don't know if you guys also noticed it. Like, he didn't give him a stereotypical fat guy voice. And that's...
Right.
That's something I really, like, appreciate with the character. Because I don't think that was the case with the Japanese version either. Like, it was a very respectable kind of... It was husky, but it wasn't like the guy who sits at his computer all day, just the big nasally kind of voice. Or, like, I don't know, not necessarily nasally, but like either heavily nasally or like mouth breather kind of voice. I really like the fact that Tyson didn't give that to him. And I like the arc he has too. Which I know I've said that about a lot of characters we've talked about today, but that, like, that's one of the big things that defines a sports anime. It's the individual character arcs for, like, everybody who's involved. And I really like that Shinya basically kept this club afloat for 2 years basically by himself. And even when the high school's dojo was taken over by Yuma, he basically just built his own ring in the schoolyard and just did drills all day. And that was also what attracted Ushio to the school. So, like, it was this great thing that he built this club with his two hands. And then also there was the added tension to the show where he basically had to win this high school tournament or he would never compete again at this level. So everybody involved with the club was bound and determined to give this to him because he gave the club to them. And it was a really beautiful sense of camaraderie. You can tell how much I'm gushing about this, that I really liked it, and Tyson just did a really great job. This may actually be my favorite performance of the show.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
Very solid thumbs up.
Mm-hmm. Lac, what do you have to say?
I don't know if I'd go that far as to say it's my favorite performance of the show, but I think it's a very strong performance. Shinya is a great character, and I think Tyson Reinhardt plays him very well. You really do get the sense of his innocence through the performance, which is an important thing for a character like this. And it never once comes across as false or like he's putting on a performance or anything like that. All of his kindness and all of that, like, likability really feels genuine, which is sometimes hard to get across in a performance. Sometimes, when you're playing a really likable character and, sometimes you give a performance that makes it feel false. That just happens sometimes. Sometimes people don't like a character, even though like they're supposed to. But for Shinya, nothing really came across as as fake or as simulated. Yeah, and Shinya had a great arc as a character. Yeah, there's really not much to say. I mean, to go into the there's not much to say to go into the performance. I'd love to talk about the character more, but that's not really why we're here. But yeah, Tyson did a good job, and I think the performance is great the whole way through. So,
Gigi.
I thought Tyson brought a lot of emotion to this in something that definitely could have been a more stereotypical performance. I know that in sports anime, a lot of the times everybody's into like some kind of typecasting thing. But I really liked that for playing a character who had the stature that he did, I think that Tyson gave him a lot of agency and didn't play it off like the comic relief or like poor woe is me, nobody likes my sumo club, oh finally people like my sumo club, but nobody. No, he played this character with a lot of confidence, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I have a feeling that if I were to have watched this in Japanese, I wouldn't have liked this character as much as I did. Probably because, I don't know, I just liked his performance, and I felt that it kind of changed the way I looked at the character. Because normally I would have just like written him off and be like, okay, well, there he is. He's the captain because he looks the most like a traditional sumo wrestler. But, I thought it really had some depth in there. So I was very glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to mention that too, Gigi, how in this show's aesthetic, our main team does not look like sumo wrestlers that we personally as Americans would imagine. The stereotypical sumo is always someone who is heavy set, who has large, thick stomach and legs and arms, and is usually they're mislabeled as being fat. Let me say this: sumo wrestlers are not fat. Sumo wrestlers are not fat at all. That is unformed muscle that you're looking at. Those men can pick up a bear if they wanted to. And it as the one stereotypical, or no, more typically, the one character who is more typically associated with the common sumo physique. I did like how they didn't give him a fat person voice. I think it sort of sounded natural because Tyson is a bit of a heavy set himself. In fact, my first choice for this role was Chris George, but Tyson was my second. And so it sort of sounds a lot more natural with their delivery. There's nothing fake about it. They don't have to give him the stereotypical fat person voice. And yeah, I think that there's just this sweetness to this character, and yet there's a strength to this character. He's both very vulnerable, and yet he's very confident. And even when he's down in the dumps, he's always got that drive to just never give up, even though he's up against the greatest obstacles. And so, yeah, this Ozaki is probably my favorite character in the entire show, not gonna lie. And I think Tyson really brought out a very strong performance to it. So, moving on to our main character, our Yokozuna in training. We have the titular Hinomaru Ushio. He is a natural treasure known as Onimaru Kunitsuna. He's hot-headed, driven, has a never-give-up attitude. He's competing to become pro despite not fitting height requirements. He's a shrimp. He has a tragic past and is fighting to become the Yokozuna in honor of his late mother. And for the most part, he's basically like a tiny gritty.
He is.
Yeah. So, playing our tiny gritty is Rico Fajardo, who we've heard in shows such as Garo the Animation, Heroic Legend of Arslan, and most recently is one of the top 3 in My Hero Academia. So, Roots, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so Hinomaru Ushio, as a character, on the surface is like very simplistic, very easy to understand, but there is actually a lot of complexity to what he does, why he does it, and Rico does a really good job of conveying that. I'm gonna be honest though, he wasn't necessarily my first pick when I had initially done predictions. I want to say...
Let me guess. Was it Clifford Chapin?
No, in fact.
Oh, really?
I think I had gone with like a Greg Ayres or a Damon Mills kind of voice to him when I had initially thought up my predictions. But I'm really glad that it ended up being Rico, because I really did enjoy him in Garo the Animation, and I've been really interested in where his career would take him from there, because it was more or less one of my first introductions to him, Grimgar notwithstanding. But he gives Ushio a bit of a shrimpy but gruff kind of plucky energy. It's like it's really something to behold, because it's like Ushio's kind of like, even in the Japanese, he had kind of a complexity to his voice, and it's great hearing Rico in the role, because like in recent months he has proven himself to be kind of a voice acting chameleon. I mean, take a look at like Zombieland Saga, where he's basically running off of Mamoru Miyano's performance, and that was sure something. But
that was a thing that happened.
Yep, it was.
That was a wonderful thing that happened.
But I'm trying to think of like a landmark moment for Ushio as a character that I really like Rico's performance for, and I think it was actually the training in the middle of the show, where he's trying to figure out what Mark Stoddard wants from him, and just him realizing in the end, and he's just like, oh yeah, I did manage to I managed to figure out your training, and I got you the meal you wanted. I just went over to the payphone and put the 100 yen coin in and ordered it. You mind taking the tab? Just... It wasn't sarcastic, but it was really playful, and that was just... That, to me, solidified Ushio as a character. So... Rico Fajardo did a really great job with him. Thumbs up.
Lac.
Well, it's rare that a main performance is actually my favorite, but I would genuinely say Rico Fajardo as Hinomaru Ushio is my favorite performance of the dub. I just love the passion that he really gave to it. It honestly, this is kind of a weird way to describe it, but it reminded me a lot of Natsu in Fairy Tail.
Oh yeah, I could dedefinitely hear it.
Okay, yeah.
Like, there was a little Habercorn in there, I felt, especially when he was yelling. But honestly, yeah, I really like the way he played it. I think the voice fit extremely well. I think he really played Ushio like a likable guy. Like, again, it never came off as false or anything like that. And I just, any time that he had to really bring it, he brought it like 120%. Like, when he was in the middle of a fight, he would just like be selling you on the passion that Ushio had to win and how he felt. And when he wasn't, he was extremely friendly, and it was a lot of fun. Like, he's a character that you really grow to care about. Like, you want to see him succeed. Like, and Rico just did such a good job of selling that. I I'm trying to think of one moment that really stood out. I would probably say the final fight against Kuze. Honestly, I think was his crowning moment because it really does kind of like amount to everything that the show has worked for, like these characters have worked for. And the moment that he sort of like comes to the resolve that I think when he's trying to like the scene in the locker room is when he's trying to like rev up his team. You know, he's kind of like, you know, yeah, I want to be the one who, you know, becomes, you know, the one who becomes one of the national treasures, but you know, but he's like, but us winning, you know, that's your dream. That's all our dreams. I don't want you to give up on that. And I think that's one of his crowning moments in the series. And yeah, I think he definitely led the show really well. So,
Gigi, what do you have to say?
I like when I heard Rico Farada was playing him, I was a little confused. Like, I was like, really? Okay, we're gonna give this a shot. So to me, this performance was one step below Mage from Dance with Devils in like the gravel department. Because remember when I watched Dance with Devils, I said Mage smoked 20 packs of cigarettes a day, and I felt the same here, except like slightly, like maybe 10 packs of cigarettes. Like, I got it, but at the same time, and this has nothing to do with Rico, the main character of a sports anime will never be my favorite character because they're the same character in every sports anime. Somebody has to go around and they have to be the best or the champion or the Yokozuna, and they do it with the power of friendship. And they have, you know, a talent that's latent inside them that maybe they haven't used in a long time, or they're just bringing back, or something to that effect. So, like, no matter how good the vocal performance is, it's always the same old story to me. And so, I mean, I didn't really like Ushio, and it didn't really help that he's the most off-model character throughout this entire anime. Like, there are episodes where he, like, looks like he just ate 20 pizzas. And then the next scene, he'll be back to being muscular but skinny. Like, just watch. Like, if you guys haven't watched all of Hinomaru Sumo yet, pay attention to what Ushio looks like, because he, like, literally looks like fucking Grimace at points. Like, it is just, it's really bad. Like, his character design gets all sorts of wonky. But that being said, I don't know. I liked Rico's performance. It's not my favorite Rico performance, but I really like Rico in general. So, you know, he did everything that he could with this character, which included a lot of yelling attack names, which are hard to do. And that gravel, man, I feel for him. Like, I hope he didn't like injure his voice at all doing it, because that's hard. It's hard to stick the gravel in and keep it consistent. And he did. He played Ushio very consistent throughout the whole anime. Just, you know, his performance was great. I didn't like the character personally, but that has nothing to do with this. He did absolutely everything he could to make Ushio a likable character. So good on him. And Mage is still the great. Thank you, Rappin' Rico. If Ushio would have rapped, 10 out of 10.
We need to convince.
I still need to see Rapping Rico.
Oh my God, you need to see Rappin' Rico. It is the best.
It is not Rapping Rico. It is Rappin Rico trademark. Get it right.
Yes. With the apostrophe after the N.
Yes. So basically, here's my thought. When I was watching this first in the sub, I was making predictions, as I'm wont to do, and you know, who do we know who plays angry little people? What better to get an angry little person to play an angry little person?
Bakugo.
Yeah, Clifford Chapin. That was my first choice. But
angry little person.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. I apologize for nothing. Hey, I've got beef with Kyle Phillips. I might as well have beef with Cliff as well.
Oh, Christ. Artie, stop being on everybody's shit list.
But anyways, no. One thing I really like about Rico is that I've met him in person, and one thing that is undeniable, he has got this crazy amount of energy as a person. Like, if you go to his panels, it's hard for him to even just sit down. He's always moving. He's always got this vibrant energy to him, and it makes sense casting him as someone like Ushio, who's got a lot of pent up energy behind them, who's hot headed, who's driven, who never gives up no matter the cost. And yeah, he wasn't my first choice, but I think that performance wise, he did an excellent job. And what else can I say that hasn't already been said? There were times to where his voice did seem a bit deep for this really short statured character. But I think he makes up for it with the ferocity and just the just, again, the energy. I think that he definitely captures Ushio's energy so naturally. And that's the best compliment I can give. So. So now that we've covered all the characters, do we have any final thoughts on the English dub or just Hinomaru Sumo in general? Roots, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. Honestly, I was kind of hyped for the show going into it, but I didn't expect to like it as much as I did going through all 24 episodes. I mean, let's be real, it's a GONZO show, so the animation is going to be like hit or miss. But, like, just the vibe it gives off, the energy it gives off, it's just, like, it ends up being a really good sports anime with a really good heart behind it. And I really appreciate that the dub kind of latches onto that heart and kind of works with it and, polishes some of the blemishes of the animation away. I actually do really want to go back and revisit the show in Japanese just to get a sense of where everything is. And this is actually a show I would, without a shadow of a doubt, recommend to people who are fans of sports anime in general. Sumo's kind of a weird thing in that, like, a lot of Americans don't really understand how it works. And just, there's the stereotype of just, like, a bunch of fat guys slapping at each other. And I like how the show actually goes into the meat and bones of how these men train for this. And it's very much a thing that they have to wrap their lives around. So, if you're...
It's not just a sport, it's a lifestyle.
Right. Because, I mean, these guys have to eat, like, 15,000 calories a day and basically train that off. So, the regimens are insane. But I would definitely recommend the show to anybody who, may even just have a passing a passing curiosity in sports anime in general. So, everybody involved did a great job. Voices were all distinct enough that I could tell everybody apart. And, for a large ensemble cast, that is basically the bare minimum I asked for, and Hinomaru Sumo knocked that out of the park. Not to mention, there were very great, solid performances all around. So, definitely a great job all around. I definitely cannot wait for this to come out on home video.
All right, Lac.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on that, because I don't really see this getting a second season, honestly. If they come back to it a few years later with a different studio, I would love to see the entire cast come back with the same production team. I think it's a very strong dub. I think everybody has a lot of passion behind it, which when you make a dub for a sports anime, you have to have that passion, or else it's just not worth it. Because part of the fun of shonen-esque like sports anime is the is the excitement, is the selling you on the drama and how over the top everything is. And yeah, I think everybody did a great job of that. I think the main cast was super strong. I think the extras were good to great. And yeah, hopefully maybe down the line we'll get an anime that I guess is a little closer to the manga, because I was told this one didn't follow the manga very well or cut a lot out. It's a little closer to the manga and just maybe a better animation budget, but all of the voice actors I think were great choices. So, yeah.
Gigi, final thoughts.
Before I say anything about the dub, I just want to tell you, guys, I watch a lot of sports anime. If you're looking for Fujo bait, this is not for you. This actually focuses more on the sport than any sports anime I've seen in a long while, which to me was a detriment, because I watch sports anime for character development and like how much they can get me into actually caring about the sport. But this anime had horrible pacing. Like you saying that a lot of stuff was cut out from the manga, you can tell. There was one point where I thought Funimation had screwed up the episode numbers, because it literally goes from them training and saying, hey, we're going to the Inter-High, to the Inter-High being almost fucking over. And I was like, where's the middle? Like, where's the middle? All of a sudden, I've got Tenoji fighting Ushio. Like, what the hell is going... What did I miss? No, that was how it went. So I was just like, what in the holy hell just happened to this anime? The animation's really bad. Characters go off model all the time. So if you're looking for a sports anime to watch because you love sports anime, like, at least in the way that I do, this isn't for you. All of that, the bad, nasty stuff being said, the dub is fantastic. And I'm always in the camp that sports anime needs a dub, because so much action should be going on screen that you shouldn't have the time to read subtitles. And sports anime, they talk a lot.
A lot of internal monologuing. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot of internal monologuing, which can get really boring if you're not interested in the performances or you're not interested in the characters. But the dub kept me engaged in this. I could tell you if I were watching this subtitled, I would have shut it off after, like, really early on, like before the second core even started, which is a shame, because the second core is the best part of the anime. There are some anime, and I'm going to give you my favorite, which is Yowamushi Pedal, which is at over 100 episodes right now, where you could watch these damn guys riding bikes for 100 episodes and you don't get bored. But like this one, a lot of time passed through it and I got bored. That's not to say that the dub is bad, because the dub is good. Like, I really like the dub for All Out. This is another sports anime that's more up my alley. And I think this is just as good as the dub for All Out. So, if you want to watch something, and get to learn sumo and hear some really good performances from a lot of alpha male bass voiced actors, yes, please watch this. And Damon Mills' Tenoji fucking killed it. But Show wasn't my favorite sports anime I've ever seen, but the dub is great. So big props to everybody who worked on it. You turned a mediocre sports show into one that I would watch a second season for. So that's good.
For my final thoughts, I'm sort of not... I didn't love it as much as Roots did. I didn't dislike it as much as Gigi did. But at the same time, I'm all for manly, brooding anime. And this was a good selection, because we don't get a lot of like pure manime anymore. We have seen a few more titles come out here and there, such as Garo Vanishing Line and more recently the new Baki on Netflix. But when they do come out, it's always a treat enjoying them, because I'm from the old school. I like my Fist of North Star. I like my Galgo 13. I like my Cobra the Animation, that sort of thing. And if a sports anime can get my blood pumping like this one, like all the fights and the matches in this one did, then it's doing something good. And so even if the animation isn't so great, even if the pacing's kind of off, I still found it very, very enjoyable. Not my favorite sports anime, nor my favorite manime of all time. But for a half a year-long show, I enjoyed my tenure with it. I don't know if I'll pick it up on home video, but all in all, I was pleased with it. And as far as the dub is concerned, while I did have some issues with a little bit of the casting, I think every performance was done well, and every actor sounded good and distinct, and I would not say that there was a bad performance in the entire lot. So kudos to Chris George for putting together another solid English dub. And on that note, if you would like to watch Hinomaru Sumo, let me ask you this. Was it was one of the Crunchyroll splits, right?
Yeah.
Right. If you would like to watch the dub of Hinomaru Sumo, it is up on Funimation now. If you want to watch it in subbed, it is on Crunchyroll. It's one of those split shows. If for any reason you would like to follow us here at Dub Talk, you can follow us on our Twitter at dubtalkpodcast. You can also follow us on we have Instagram, Coffee, and what else do we have, Roots? Remind me?
Tumblr.
Yeah. I'm no good at outros.
Yeah, we have the Twitter, the Twitch account.
Twitch.
We have a Coffee.
What do we use the Twitch for?
Occasionally.
Sometimes we play Jackbox.
Yeah, basically Jackbox every now and again.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm not good at these long outros. So, anyways, if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Spaceman. We'll just put the links in the video below.
Right.
Just screw it. We'll do it live. If you want to follow me,
play us out. What does it mean to play us out? No, all right.
If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Spaceman Hardy. You can also find me over at the Funimation forums and the Discord. Roots, what about you?
Basically, at the moment, you can find me on Twitter at Roots of Justice, where I mainly just retweet cute animal pics, sometimes talk fandom stuff. It's a good time. You should come give me a follow. Chat a little bit. We'll have fun. And, I should note that I'm actually in the process of scripting some solo stuff out. I don't know if I'll use my personal YouTube account for what I have planned, or if I'll talk to everybody and see if they're cool with me putting it up on the Dub Talk YouTube, but stay tuned for that. It's actually coming.
Oh, very interesting. Lac, where can we find you?
Well, most of the stuff that you need to know about me, you can find on Twitter. I'm finally back to making videos again. I still am doing anime reviews, but I've also got some other types of videos planned out. I also helped make a video game. I was at a game jam earlier this year, and the very talented people, much more talented than I, are still currently working on it. I just helped out with scripting the narrative, and hopefully it should be out within a couple months at least. It's a visual novel. It's a science fiction visual novel. It's kind of an Atama game.
Yo.
And what else? You can find my own Twitch, Watcher Lac. That's what it's under. I'm right now doing The Witcher 2. I don't know when this is coming out. I doubt I'll beat The Witcher 2 by the time this comes out, but even still, probably after that I'm going to do The Witcher 3. But yeah, that's about it. I've got my own Ko-fi, and I've got a Patreon that I'm not really using because I don't feel I'm big enough to use it yet, but I just made it so that I didn't have to pay for whatever Patreon was doing. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. Just YouTube Like the Watcher and Twitter Like the Watcher, and you should be able to find everything you need to know about me.
Cool. Gigi.
You can find me on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Twitter at Animepalooza, where I talk about anime boys and play Udapri Shining Live a lot and basically yell for Camu to please step on me. God, please step on me. Kamu-sama.
One of these days.
I also have another podcast I do called the Shoujo Trash Showdown. We post once a month on my YouTube channel where we go more in detail to all the trash that I love. And starting soon, I'll have my own solo podcast, which I haven't announced yet. So I guess I'll keep it a secret for now.
Oh, my.
I know. And that's me. Come follow me. We'll play. It'll be a good time.
Right.
Sorry for all the sappy tweets I've been posting lately. That's not my fault.
Yeah. Anyways, on behalf of Dub Talk, this is Spaceman Hardy. Thank you for listening, and otaku on, my friends. Spirit.
Good game.
Love your faces.
Still can't out eat my buffet.